Have you guys ever been told that to grow on social media, you need to be consistent?
Consistency.
At some point, it's like, enough. We get it. You need to post consistently in order to grow on social media, but how do you post consistently? In today's video, I'm gonna be sharing 5 hacks that I use to remain consistent on social media. Let's get to it. Hi, by the way, if you're new here, my name is Jade Beeson. I upload content like this every single week. Let's get to hack number 1 though. This hack is all around an idea bank, specifically the importance of having one. Now, an idea bank is probably what you guessed it would be. It's a bank of ideas, specifically content ideas. So I want you to think back to the last time you tried to sit down to create a piece of content. Maybe it was a video, maybe it was a photo, maybe it was a story, whatever it may be. I'm willing to bet that you sat down and you started to rack that brain of yours for different content ideas. Now, this is actually when you're gonna bump into the first hurdle in regards to consistency. When it comes to being consistent on social media, you need to have a decent amount of content ideas on the go so that when you have the time to sit down and create content, you already have a bunch of ideas that you can pull from, which makes the whole production process a lot easier. So a bank of content ideas makes producing your content easier, which leads to having more content to share in the first place. And voila, consistency has been achieved. So how do we get to a place where we have a good content idea bank? Well, you may have noticed already that you tend to come up with your best ideas when you're not trying. I feel like it's like our brain's way of just really annoying us, you know? We'll come up with these great ideas when we're commuting to work, or when we're in the shower, or when we're doing gardening. She says never had spent any time in a garden in her entire life. But for people who do garden, I imagine that's a time where your brain can relax a bit, it can wander off. And when your brain does that is usually when you come up with creative ideas. So what we want to do is have a way for us to keep track of all of those creative ideas so that when it's time to actually produce our content, we can just refer back to that idea bank. Now, the key here is to choose a location for your idea bank, which is portable so that you can access it whilst you're on the go. Easy to access so that when you come up with a good idea, it's easy for you to jot it down and continue with your day. And organized by content type. This is especially important for anyone who creates multiple different types of content. So if you are someone who creates vertical short videos in addition to long videos, which might live on a platform like YouTube, and you also take photos, then you're going to want to make sure that when you're jotting down ideas, you are actually assigning them to one of those categories. Bonus points for those of you who also save content into an inspiration folder on your social media channel. So you can literally do this on all of the main social media platforms. On YouTube, if you came across a video which really got your creative juices flowing, you could save that to a playlist which is hidden from everyone else, and that is your inspo folder. And on TikTok and Instagram, you can save content to a folder as well. I mean, I'm pretty sure you can even save posts on Threads now too. So once you get in a habit of keeping your idea bank and you have your inspo folder, it means that when it's time for you to sit down and create, you have multiple different ideas that you can pull from, and hopefully that makes the production process easier. Now, I'm going to keep it real with you though. Sometimes you will have all of that stuff, you will sit down to create content, and the ideas just will not be hitting. Now, if that happens, there are a few different places you can look to which might trigger a few more ideas for you. For example, if you're on YouTube, you can head to the research tab. This is fairly new, and basically it uses YouTube's own data to tell you what content your audience are currently watching and engaging with. So that could be a great place to come up with ideas. Alternatively, if you're on Instagram or TikTok or any other platform, you want to head to their explore page, their For You page, or the equivalent. You want to head to that page, you want to search for some keywords which are related to the type of content that you create, and just look at the content that pops up. The content that's going to appear is going to be content that social media platform is ranking pretty highly. If it's appearing under whatever keyword you search, it means that TikTok's algorithm or Instagram's algorithm rates that piece of content. So actually, it's a really rich content space because you're looking at some of the best performing content which is similar to your niche. It's really important for you to remember inspiration versus imitation when you're doing this process though. We're not doing all this research that we could be like, that's great, let me just copy that. That's not what we're doing. We're doing it to spark some ideas for ourselves so that we can come up with our own content ideas that our audience will absolutely love. All right, next up is a hack that's really close to my heart that I've been following for a while now, and it has changed the game for me. And I'm gonna call this hack making creation easy. Now, a lot of us make the process of creating content unnecessarily difficult. We put up these barriers which stop us from creating with ease, and we don't do it intentionally, it just kind of happens. And when that does happen, it means that we end up procrastinating when it comes to us creating content. And it often means that the actual creation sessions take way longer than they need to. All of this will result in us having less content to post. And if we have less content to post, it's going to be a lot harder for us to be consistent. Also, it just kind of ends up making us feel like it's a chore.
It's just hard.
Do you know what I mean? We've all been there. We've all been there where content creation feels like a bit of a chore sometimes. We don't want it to feel that way. So let me break down some of the barriers that you might have in place so that you could be aware of the mistakes that you might currently be making. If your camera equipment is hard to find, so it's in some weird area of your home and it's like you've got to climb up a few flights of stairs, a ladder, and then someone has to like lift you up to get to where the camera is, that's a barrier. Who wants to do that every time they want to create? If you don't know how to use your kit yet, that's a barrier. Dedicate some time to truly understanding how to set your camera kit up. If you're using like a fancy camera, figure out what your best settings are. It might take an hour out of your day, but once you do it, it's done and you don't need to worry about it again. If your gear is not organized, you're going to procrastinate because who wants to sort through a bunch of wires to get their kit? I'm laughing to myself right now because I literally have a drawer, which I will show you on the screen, which is an absolute nightmare. And it's become the drawer that we just don't even touch because who wants to go through that? But when you compare that to where my actual kit lives, it's a pretty organized space. It's also very easy to grab. It's very easy to see. It's always in my eye line. And that therefore makes the whole process of me wanting to create a lot easier. So in addition to avoiding some of those pitfalls that I've just mentioned, there are a few things that you can do which will just make the whole process even more seamless. First thing you want to do is get in the habit of charging your batteries every single time you film. So the second I'm done with this filming session, I'm going to take my battery out and I'm going to put it on charge so that the next time I film, I know that there's always going to be charged batteries. Obviously, I have multiple batteries, but at the end of the day, if you never charge them, you're still going to run out of power. So get in the habit of recharging your batteries every single time you finish a filming session. Another thing you might want to do is look into investing in equipment which will make filming quick videos a lot easier for you. I recently purchased a light from Amazon. It was like £15. I'll link it below. I put it on top of my laptop and I use it for meetings, but also if I want to film a quick TikTok and I don't want to set up my entire lighting system and the natural light maybe just isn't giving, because let's face it, I live in London. It's pretty much grey all the time. This was a great investment. It's hooked up to my laptop. It's always there. So let's say I've got 30 minutes free in my day that is unexpected. I can just head into my idea bank. So I've already got a list of content ideas. I can film 2, 3, maybe even 4 short form videos just like that because my lighting's already set up and I already have the idea for my content. Final thing to think about when it comes to making content creation actually pretty easy is to think about the gear that you're using. Now, this tip isn't going to be for everyone. I don't want to encourage anyone to go and buy a new camera when you don't need one, but I must share this with you because this has made a huge impact on my ability specifically to vlog recently. So I'm currently filming on my Sony ZV-1. I recently purchased the Osmo Pocket 3 and it completely changed the game for me when it came to my ability to vlog and also my willingness to shoot B-roll, because the camera is incredibly easy to pick up, to immediately start filming and to know that you're going to get high quality footage. So if you're a vlogger and you're in the market for a new camera and you currently use a camera that is heavy, it has a big lens and it's actually becoming a barrier to you wanting to vlog, then I highly recommend checking out the Osmo Pocket 3, specifically the Creator Combo. I will put a link in the description so that you can check it out. Okay, should we talk about content planning? Now, this is an important part when it comes to consistency. When you have a plan of what content you need to share, it makes it easier for you to understand what you need to create. And it also makes all of your production sessions a lot more intentional. So you end up wasting a lot less time. I'm going to go against the grain here though, so I might annoy some people. I don't think there's one way to plan your content that works for everyone. In fact, I have a masterclass and I'll link to it below in case you want to get your hands on it, where I talk about batching and content creation systems. And I actually share 2 different systems based on 2 different types of people, because we're all different and therefore we all have different approaches when it comes to scheduling and creating our content. Now, I'm going to show you the way in which I plan my content. I use a program called Asana. It's worth noting that I use Asana to literally plan my entire business. I mean, I even use it to plan my wedding. So your girl's getting her money's worth, but it's not a free product. It is an investment. So it might not be for everyone. But this is how I basically use it. So I plan 1 month of content in advance and I plan it across all of my channels. So TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram. It's worth noting that the screen recording you're seeing on the screen, you're only seeing my content plan for my personal channels. I have another brand called the Creator Project, and that has a YouTube channel and an Instagram channel, and that is being planned on a separate section of Asana, because that's not just me who does that. That's myself and my marketing coordinator, Hayley. But when it comes to my channels, that's very much me. So I will plan out all of my content that I want to share over the span of a month. So every single Wednesday, I will spend time producing the short form content on that list. So I'll work through all of the content that I've planned and I will start filming, editing and scheduling all of that content on a Wednesday. And then on a Thursday, I turn to my longer form videos. So right now it's Thursday and that's why I'm filming my YouTube video, because that is my long form video day. Now I purposely split up short form to long form because I find that it actually requires different parts of my brain to do a short form video versus doing a long form. So I split them into 2 different days. And because I spend time doing this every single week, it means that I'm always ahead of schedule, which makes being consistent a lot easier. So that's how I do it. I'm well aware that this is my full-time job. Not everyone is able to do that or dedicate as much time to doing that. So there are other ways that you might want to plan out your content too. For example, you might want to use an Excel spreadsheet. So I actually have a content calendar, which I will link to below, that a lot of creators who I've worked with use to plan their content. It allows you to plan your content on a monthly basis, and it allows you to do it in a strategic way. So basically it encourages you to figure out what the value of that piece of content is going to be, what feature it's going to use, and then you can plan out what the content is actually going to contain. And it has different versions for all of the main platforms as well. So if you want to get your hands on that, it's available to members of the collective. So I'll put a link below. But if you're handy with Excel, you can also create your own calendar as a way for you to plan your content. Another popular way that people plan their content is using Notion. I'm actually not a Notion girly, but sometimes I feel like I should be because I think a lot of people are. But I'm an Asana girl, but I've heard good things about Notion, and that could be another great way for you to plan your content. Now, whichever method you use to plan your content, there are a few things that I want you to consider. The first is whether or not you want to take it one step further beyond planning and also schedule the content once it's produced as well. I am a big fan of scheduling content. I have a lot of social media channels. There's like 5 in total. It's very difficult for me to stay on top of all of those if I'm manually posting content for all of those platforms. And by manually posting, I mean like literally getting my phone and being like, share. No, it's not for me. That life isn't for me. I left that life behind a really long time ago. So I schedule all of my content. I schedule all of my Instagram content using a platform called Later. You can schedule content across multiple other social media channels using Later as well. So it's all in one place. When it comes to my YouTube content, I can schedule both my long form videos and my shorts inside YouTube Studio. So that's great. When it comes to TikTok, I don't necessarily pre-schedule it. I just create all my content. I save it as a draft, and I have a little task on my Asana every single day to post that TikTok. So that's kind of how I manage all 3 of those platforms. Think about if that's something that you want to explore as well. Obviously, there'll be a link to Later in the description. Another thing I want you to think about when it comes to scheduling is your own personal schedule. A lot of the time, we will see other creators who maybe we look up to and we're trying to aspire to get to that stage. And we're like, okay, well, they're on 4 channels and they post every single day on every single one. So therefore, I now need to schedule my time so that I can create the same amount of content and have the same posting schedule. But we never stop to think about, okay, but what does that person have going on behind the scenes, which allows them to be so consistent? Like, let's take me, for example. I have a full-time employee, right? And I have a video editor, and I do this full-time. There are multiple people who have a hand in all of the content that I'm creating. So by no means should you be trying to replicate a posting schedule like mine if you are doing this content creation thing whilst you're working at a full-time job. So think about your personal schedule too, because it has to be realistic. All right, let's move on to my next hack, and my personal favorite because it's my own hack. I call it the min-max method. So if you ever hear anyone talk about this method, can you tag me in the comments, because it's mine. I need to I don't know, trademark it or something. I should get paid every time someone talks about it. I'm kidding. No one talks about this method. It's not very well known. It's literally just me. Basically, it's not very complicated, but I like to set myself a minimum posting goal and a maximum posting goal. So let's take YouTube, for example. The minimum amount of long form videos I want to share on my YouTube channel is 1 per week. The maximum is 2 per week. The reason why I do this is because it allows me to flex my posting frequency depending on what's going on in life, because life gets in the way. And anyone who's going to sit here and tell you it's not okay for life to get in the way, you need to hustle and there's no excuse.
That's a lie.
They're just lying, because life gets in the way for everyone. There are things that are more important than social media. Yeah, I said it. There's things that are more important than social media. And sometimes those things will pop up and it will mess with your schedule. Now, having a min and a maximum posting goal means that when these things pop up, all you have to do is drop down to your minimum posting goal for that week. And honestly, the reason why this is so effective is more to do with your mindset than anything else. Because for a lot of us, we only focus on the max goal. So in this scenario, that would be 2 videos per week. So if something happens in my life where I can't post as much as I'd like to, and I actually only post 1 video that week, I'm going to get in my head about it. I'm going to be annoyed at myself. I'm going to be like, oh my God, I'm not trying as hard as I need to. My YouTube channel is going to fail. It becomes a downward spiral. And then you're like, well, what's the point? I can't be bothered to post 2 next week. I've already ruined the month, right? It can really mess with your mindset. But with my min maximum goal, it means that if I go for a week and I only post once, I actually feel no way about it because I've still hit my goal, right? So consider using that hack for each of your...
A few moments later.
There we go. I don't know why I choose to do the long form videos on a Thursday when the fire alarm has a test every single Thursday, but we move. Consider using that method and setting a minimum and a maximum posting goal for each of your social media channels, just so that you can give yourself a bit of grace. Okay, we're almost done, but not quite yet. There's one left. I'm calling this one backup content. And this one is like my secret arsenal. I feel like did I use that in the correct? It's like let's move on. This one is a great one because it basically allows me to remain consistent even when sometimes I'm not really trying. So backup content is content which is really easy for you to create in a big batch. So you can sit down for a few hours, 4 hours maybe, create this content in a batch and then just save it for later. And then you want to pull on this content when stuff, I was going to swear, but I don't like swearing in my videos because I always think, what if you've got all kitties running around? But you probably could guess the word that I was going to use. When stuff really hits the fan, this is when the backup content steps in. It is worth saying that when you go through really challenging periods, it's okay to just not post. Like, that's okay. But if you're someone who might go through these phases quite often, you might want to invest some of your time into creating this backup content. So examples of backup content: sit down talking head videos, whether it's a long video, a short video, whatever, and where you're sitting down and you're talking about something that is of interest to your audience. These are great for backup content because they're very easy for you to create in a big batch. And as long as the thing that you're talking about is evergreen, you'll be able to reuse it in the future. What is evergreen? I hear you screaming at me through the camera lens. Evergreen content is basically content that can live on well into the future. So it's not seasonal, it's not topical, it's content that's going to be relevant for years and years to come. This is actually pretty evergreen, this video right now. So this could be some backup content for me, right? Now, this type of content is especially useful for people who are vloggers because you have this blessing and a curse that actually all of your content has to be filmed pretty recently, especially if you're like a weekly vlogger or a daily vlogger. You kind of have to continuously be creating content. So when you take time off, it's hard for you to have content running in the background, but that is where the backup content is going to come in. The other form of background content is repurposed content. So this is either content that you've created for a different channel. So let's say you are on TikTok and you do this great thing where you save your TikToks before you post them. Everyone should be doing that because when you save your TikToks before you post them, this is also the case for like Instagram Reels, for example, it means you can save them without the logo, also known as the watermark. This is important because you should not be sharing any videos that have watermarks on other social media platforms. So you don't want the watermark because if you have the watermark, it means that you can't really use this hack. So you've got in the habit of saving your TikToks before you post them. And now you have a bunch of TikToks that have only ever lived on your TikTok channel. But maybe you're also on Instagram. Maybe you're also on YouTube. Well, guess what? That content can now be repurposed and shared on another platform when you're going through a content drought. That could be your backup content, right? The final form of backup content is basically content which doesn't need to be filmed in order for it to be edited and shared. So this is when you film yourself making a coffee, going for a walk, like mundane, like B-roll style content. This is super useful for you to create and save to a folder because essentially there'll be a time in the future where maybe you can't film the content like you'd like to, or maybe you can't get some time out to take some photos. But because you've got all of that B-roll content, you can actually use it, edit it all together to create a narrative, add a voiceover, or you can whack some valuable text on the top so that it has some kind of value to it. And that can be your content. So you don't actually need to sit down to film in order to create a piece of content and share it. And that can also be batched pretty easily as well. So consider having one of those types of content in your arsenal. I use the word again. I never use the word arsenal. I always do this when I'm on camera. I use words and phrases that I don't usually use, and then I second guess if I'm using them correctly. I'm pretty sure I am. Let's move on. You'll have it in your arsenal, and that will mean that when stuff hits the fan, you'll have some content that you can share regardless. And that is it, my loves. I hope you found it useful. If you feel like hanging around, I recommend watching this video. It's all about how you can create a social media strategy step by step that will help you reach your goals in this year and beyond. And it includes a free link to a social media strategy worksheet. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I cannot wait to see you in my next video.